people were brought to our country to vote, and they vote illegally. But, like the 2020 election, I won that election by so much. Everybody knows it.
Everybody knows it. No, we do not, sir. Up next, we got to talk about some controversial comments that President Trump made in an interview with Dan Bongino, who was, of course, Deputy FBI Director, but is now back hosting his radio show and podcast network. Trump is still obsessed with the election that he lost in 2020 and with voting more broadly. And he went on a really unhinged rant about elections that shocked me because it's so opposite of what I've heard from Republicans my entire life. Anyway, without further ado, I'm just going to play this clip for you. And trust me, I have some thoughts. And there's been some other news developments about it as well. So let's listen.
These people were brought to our country to vote, and they vote illegally. And amazing that the Republicans aren't tougher on it. The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting. And we have states that are so crooked, and they're counting votes. We have states that I won that show I didn't win. Now, you're going to see something in Georgia where they were able to get, with a court order, the ballots. You're going to see some interesting things come out. But, like the 2020 election, I won that election by so much. Everybody knows it.
Everybody knows it. No, we do not, sir. We absolutely do not. He did not win that election, and the fact that he's still obsessed with that when he is literally the president now and did win in 2024 is so dumb and so frustrating to me. But there's so much to unpack about this statement and a couple other things he said in this interview. One is this idea of mass, widespread illegal immigrant voting. I'm sure there's some of it somewhere, but the idea that that is a regular or pervasive issue is not substantiated. And you have to think about it like this. Hear me out if you're about to start furiously typing on your keyboard. If you were an illegal immigrant, if you were here in the United States without papers and you wanted to work and you wanted to stay and you didn't want to get deported, of all things to do, would you really risk getting caught and potentially subject to immigration arrest or raid or deportation to cast a ballot in an election for a country that you just came to and are not even particularly invested in the politics of? I don't think most people will do that. And that's why there's actually very little documented evidence of illegal immigrants voting. Now, the question of a national takeover of our elections by the federal government in different states is wild for me to hear President Trump suggest, because Democrats actually kind of tried to do that. They tried to federalize elections or federally set tons of standards and very vastly limit how states could operate their elections with H.R. 1 previously. I think it was the John Lewis Voting Rights Act or something like that. Republicans cried bloody murder because, and they were right about this, the Constitution delegates the power to administer and set up and decide how elections will be run to the states, not to the federal government. And having the federal government run the elections for the federal government is obviously more prone to a conflict of interest or manipulation than a decentralized system. So I'll read you a tweet here from former Congressman Justin Amash that I agree with. Republicans should not, in fact, quote unquote, nationalize the voting. If you were worried about election integrity before, this would make things infinitely worse. Decentralized elections are one of the greatest protections against large-scale fraud and abuse. I completely agree with this, because when you have elections administered at the state and local level and decentralized across all these different places, it's much harder to actually do the kind of thing that Trump thinks happened and didn't really, and steal an election. And that's the point. If it all was centralized, it would be much easier to manipulate, and public faith and trust in the elections would plummet even further than it already has. There's no way to nationalize it. That wouldn't mean the next Democratic administration wouldn't get to run it in all these different states. So it's just such a strange idea. And it goes against so much of what what Republicans have said about states' rights and the Constitution my entire life. And it's also obviously based on some serious derangement by the president in different ways. So I want to read you this quote where Trump apparently thinks that he won the state of Minnesota 3 times. Listen to this from Mediaite. It's a transcription of elsewhere in the interview with Dan Bongino. Trump did not mention which states in particular he wanted Republicans to go after, but he got onto the topic after slamming Minnesota, which he said is a quote-unquote rigged state. Of course, Article 1 of the Constitution solely gives the states the power to run elections. I can't even read this with a straight face. There's something in the water up there, Trump told Bongino. I love the state. I won the state 3 times, but got no credit for it. Minnesota voted for the Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris in the last 3 presidential elections. I'm sorry. Has he ever been to Minnesota? Does he know anything about the people that live in Minnesota? At least in a state like Georgia, you could say that he thinks, well, the people of Georgia would have voted for me. Now, to be fair, the election system was run by pro-Trump Republicans in 2020 in Georgia, like the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and other people. So the idea that they like rigged it against him makes no sense and isn't true. And just Joe Biden won the state. Like, I'm sorry. But at least you could see how maybe he could think, being, so egotistical, like, oh, I must have won Georgia. The people of Georgia like me there. Like, Minnesota? The same population that elects Democratic senators, Democratic governors. You could look at statewide polls. You could look at party registration. It's a blue state. It's not even a purple state. It's not even close. It's like a very blue state. And yet this man is so delusionally narcissistic that he actually suggests that he won it not just once, but 3 times. I'm sorry, but that is a level of detachment from reality by the president that, however you feel about election rules, should probably concern you. To have the man behind the nuclear button actually like so detached from reality, that gives me pause, I will say. Now, they sort of are trying to walk this back, the administration, the call to nationalize our elections, because, like I said, Republicans, rank and file politicians have been explicitly against that for so many years, by Caroline Leavitt trying to say that Trump said something he actually didn't say. So Caroline Leavitt gives head-scratching explanation for Trump election demand. There's the headline. The president's call for Republicans to nationalize voting sparked alarm. Asked to specify about the president's exact comment where he called for taking over voting in 15 places and what states he was referring to, Leavitt doubled down. Quote, again, what I was just telling you is that with the passage of the SAVE Act, voter ID will be implemented across all 50 states. The president was referring to specific states in which we have seen a high degree of fraud, she argued. I'm sorry, but so this is a real controversy that's also ongoing about the SAVE Act, and I've talked about it in the past. I don't think it's unreasonable to some of the restrictions on voting imposed by the SAVE Act, but to claim that what Trump was talking about was just the SAVE Act, it strains credulity. Really? The SAVE Act would apply to all the states, not 15 states. And there's a lot more than 15 states that don't have voter ID. And he wasn't just talking about voter ID. And he really thinks that he won Minnesota? I don't know. It's crazy. I don't think Trump could tell you what the SAVE Act is or what it does, really. And so the idea that that's what he was talking about is, it seems like a cope from Caroline Leavitt. I mean, her job as press secretary is to be a spin doctor. So she's trying to recast what the president said as something more sane. Because the SAVE Act would impose some rules on state elections, but it wouldn't take them over. It wouldn't nationalize them. So it's just that it's clear that's not what Trump was referring to, and she's not being honest there. Now, it's interesting. There's already some significant pushback on what Trump said. And of course, he was asked about it again. And I won't play the clip because he basically says the same thing. He basically says, yeah, nationalize. He never mentions the SAVE Act. He does not say, oh, we just want voter ID in every state. Because again, I would have no issue with that. I think that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, that's not what he was saying. Here's some pushback he's already getting from Republican politicians. The president's call to nationalize and take over voting was met with pushback even from Republican leaders on Capitol Hill on Tuesday. Quote, I'm not in favor of federalizing elections. I think that's a constitutional issue, said a Majority Leader John Thune told reporters. House Speaker Mike Johnson, 54, claimed the president was simply expressing frustration with the problems in blue states when he was asked by CNN's Manu Raju about taking over elections. Asked specifically about a takeover, Johnson responded, no, 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 as he walked away. Oh, Mike Johnson. He really does obviously know better and then just can't really say what he really thinks when it comes to what's going on. So I find that to be disappointing. But I think Republicans know this is crazy. But the election stuff bothers me because it's like he just cannot let the past lie and has to relitigate it and bring it up. And it's like, dude, you won this time. You do not need to relitigate 2020. You do not need to rant and rave about all this stuff that's not even going to affect you anyways. You're not running in 2028. And at some point, the price to this is severe. If you continue, America actually obviously has a lot of problems, but it actually, all things considered, has a pretty reliable election system that operates pretty well. And the more we degrade trust in it and we sow discord and doubt, the more people are just not going to accept the results. No matter what happens, one side's always going to reject it, claim it's rigged, all this stuff. All these wild claims will spread like on social media, but then actually get debunked quietly and no one ever notices that, or fall apart when they're actually brought to court. And I'm concerned about that because the whole point of America is that we settle our differences with ballots, not bullets. And I don't think you can separate the rise in nihilism and political violence that we're living through from the decline in trust in our electoral and democratic means of solving our problems. So to the extent Trump is contributing to that, which I think is a vast, vast extent, I think it's a real problem that will have ramifications long after his time in charge has come and gone. That's just my take, but you guys will have to let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure subscribed and all of that. Hit the like button. And that'll be it for today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk again real soon.